Back here on Spotlight, it finally happened. Florida fired Billy Napier on Sunday after the Gators barely survived Mississippi State on homecoming weekend. Napier, 22 and 23 in his career at Florida. We know Billy Gonzalez is going to serve as the interim, but this guy, Lane Kiffin, his name has been thrown around quite a lot when it comes to who is going to be UF's next head coach. We have an article right now over on CBSSports.com from John Tolte, and he says that Florida's first call should be none other than Lane Kiffin. And sources told CBS Sports that even before Sunday, Florida's AD Scott Strickland had been doing his due diligence on the Ole Miss coach this season and made calls to those around Lane Kiffin. But right now, Lane Kiffin is the head coach of Ole Miss, as we know. So is that a distraction? Let's talk about it with our college football analysts, Chip Patterson and Bud Elliot. Guys, it feels like you can't say Florida football without hearing Lane Kiffin right now in the zeitgeist. It is a big job. We know that. So how much of a distraction is all of this noise for not only Lane Kiffin, but also his team as they have another very serious matchup, a big one against Oklahoma, Chip?
I think it is more for the team than it is for Lane Kiffin. I am not concerned with Lane Kiffin. This is not the first time that we have seen Lane Kiffin be connected to other jobs. But really, we've even seen Lane Kiffin entertain it, welcome it, troll fans online about his potential movement or candidacy for other coaching positions. So I'm not worried about Lane Kiffin. I'm not worried about his focus. He's been through this. He's done that. The team is a more interesting question, and this is where I would say the way that this Ole Miss roster is constructed, where you are at the quarterback position, going to Ferris State at Division II to go get Trinidad Chambliss. At the wide receiver position, some of your key players have also come from the transfer portal. This is not an Ole Miss program that has been built and supplied by a huge high school recruiting pipeline. That is the only place that I would be concerned about the impact of these coaching rumors, would be those high school seniors and the parents of those high school seniors wondering whether or not my commitment to go play in Oxford is going to be something that still includes being committed to Lane Kiffin. But even in the modern transfer portal era, that might not even matter as much. So is it a distraction to the pundits who are trying to talk about Ole Miss while also trying to wonder about Lane Kiffin's future? 100%, Jacqueline. But you're a professional. Bud's a professional. I claim to be a professional. I think we can do this. I say less of a distraction when it comes to the actual preparation for football.
I think Chip pretty much nailed it. The only thing I would add is that in the modern era, a lot of these teams right now are currently working on extensions of the rev share contracts for players that are on their current roster. So again, as far as it being a distraction to your current players, am I going to sign up for 2 more years of Ole Miss if I'm currently a freshman there in Oxford if I don't know if Lane Kiffin is going to be the coach of Ole Miss going forward? I don't know. Like maybe that impacts it. Maybe the money's so good and like the program's so good that I just don't care.
Okay, let's get back to their game at hand because it's yet another ranked-on-ranked SEC matchup as Ole Miss hits the road to take on Oklahoma. So, Chip, plenty of storylines out there, but what's the main one that sticks out to you?
Oh, the main one for me is going to be just about the balance that we have with this Ole Miss offense, because Trinidad Chambliss is obviously a very gifted playmaker, and they have been able to, I think, create more versatile options at the pass-catching positions. But daggum, they can run the football. And that was a little bit of a weakness for this Ole Miss team last year that I think ended up dooming them in some of their upset losses coming down the stretch. I think that the way that Kewan Lacey is driving the bus here is something that has really been noticeable for me in terms of ways that Ole Miss can win different kind of football games. Lacey's doing a good job. Obviously, you get a lot of the quarterback run game with Trinidad Chambliss being a part of that as well. And when I think about going into this matchup, again, to turn our attention back to the football of it all, you've got to be able to run the football to keep Oklahoma from just teeing off with its pass rushers on Trinidad Chambliss. So that ground game helps them in 3rd and short. That ground game helps them in the red zone. But that ground game, more than anything, provides balance so that the entire offense can run at a higher clip.
Yeah, Chip, when I look at this, I mean, this is probably the most difficult matchup for the Ole Miss offense they have seen so far. LSU has a better defense than Georgia does, but of course that LSU game was in Oxford. This game is in Norman. This is a really difficult test. I think if you're the Ole Miss offensive line, it's really time, to step up here and make sure that Chambliss has time to throw. And Oklahoma has pretty nice cover guys. I think they should be able to cover these Ole Miss receivers. So the plan probably looks a lot like what it was against LSU. Can we score in the mid-20s? Can we, I think they would take the high 20s today all day and take it to the bank if you offered it to them. But Brent Venables is an elite defensive play caller. Oklahoma is totally loaded on defense. This is going to be difficult.
All right, I want to kind of double down on the Oklahoma side of things because the Sooners, they bounce back from the Red River rivalry. They get a win at South Carolina. So, Bud, what is your confidence in Oklahoma to kind of keep this rolling against Ole Miss?
Jacqueline, it's a great question. Honestly, a lot of it comes down to John Mateer. Oklahoma does not have much of a run game this year. Mateer has had games in which he has gotten away with some really risky throws. We saw that against Michigan and Auburn, and we saw a game in which those interceptions were actually caught. That happened in the game there against Texas, which, of course, Oklahoma lost. So, can he avoid making some of the really risky, dumb plays while still carrying the offense on his back now a couple weeks removed from that thumb injury?
Yeah, this is a fascinating spot for John Mateer and this Oklahoma offense in that I still don't feel confident in the group as a whole. I still have yet to, against power conference competition, feel as though this is a group that imposes their will. Now, when the game script is set so that it's a lower scoring game and you need somebody to go out there and just make enough of the X-Factor type plays, well, John Mateer is absolutely your guy. But for Oklahoma, playing at home against an Ole Miss team that is in a little bit of a potential letdown scenario in their second straight road game coming out of Athens where they've got that very close, tough loss. Can you maybe impose your will early, create a different kind of game script? I think the first 15 plays, the first couple possessions for John Mateer and the Oklahoma offense, maybe give them an opportunity with that noon Eastern 11 local start to catch Ole Miss sleeping and really give themselves a good advantage to help their defense out. So a fast start for Oklahoma's offense, I think, would be a huge part of this game.
Yeah, and with that, of course, John Mateer, that is both of y'all's player to watch. And again, one total touchdown in those two games since returning from hand surgery. So it hasn't really looked great since he's coming off of that surgery. So, Bud, if this game does not pan out the way that Sooners fans hope it does, how detrimental is that going to be just from like a locker room perspective? Because the schedule doesn't really get any easier, right? You got Tennessee, you got Bama, you got Mizzou, you got LSU. So how important is it to get a win here? Because when you look down the stretch and just the confidence you want this team to have as they finish out that really, really tough schedule down the stretch, and really John Mateer's confidence.
Yeah, Jacqueline, I think you nailed it here. This game is likely a college ball playoff elimination game for both sides. I'm not sure Ole Miss would have the resume to get in at 10-2, obviously, because they played a bunch of nobodies in the non-conference. And for Oklahoma, I think 9-3 would potentially allow them to get in, but they might have a little bit of a grace period there for one more loss. But again, the difficulty of that schedule down the stretch makes it pretty unlikely that they get in if they do lose this ball game.
All right, it is game prediction time. Chip, will come to you first. How do you think it all pans out?
I think Ole Miss goes into Norman and gets themselves a road win. I think they bounce back. I think they get back on track. And I think that any of this Florida talk is nothing but nonsense because this is an Ole Miss team that I think is very focused on righting the wrongs of last year, avoiding the disappointment of what easily could have been a college football playoff appearance. I think they go into Oklahoma, come out with a lower scoring, but a 27-21 victory.
Chip, that's exactly what I have as well. I just trust Ole Miss to dial up a couple scores, even against an elite Oklahoma defense. I don't really trust this Oklahoma offense to keep pace with what Lane Kiffin's doing there in Oxford.
All right, it's all going down Saturday at noon Eastern. Guys, we appreciate it. Hang tight. We got more SEC talk coming your way on Spotlight in just a moment. But hey, in the meantime, make sure you check out the Cover 3 podcast. You can hear the fellows on there. I've been told I need to go back and listen because they may have to issue a statement in regards to my fandom for Florida football versus Florida basketball. So TBD on that. But there is an Upon Further Review episode that is in your feed right now. You can watch by scanning that QR code on your screen. We'll be right back here after the break.